Hey guys, this is Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. We're back out here at the private farm and we're going to be doing some testing on our latest N550 loads that showed some promise, the daily driver and the sports car. Daily driver being 29.5 grains and the sports car 30.5. We're going to shoot our normal 2 5-shot groups at 640, see what we get there, and then if I have time I think I might heave them out to 1030 and see how they hold together. So we've got a lot to test, a lot to do, so I won't be taking you along for this. We'll just review everything once we're back at the bench. So we'll see you then. I'm going to get started here. All right, we're back at the bench here. Well, we're done. I think we've officially reached a point where it's time to stop screwing around and time to start building rifles. So I had to not rush, but I had to be diligent about getting through all that in order to get it all tested. A couple things I'll tell you about testing it. One, I couldn't pay any attention to the wind because the wind was what I would call an ass kicker. It was coming in from about 1030 to 130, and it was switching back and forth, so it would kind of waver from 1030 to 130 like a head-on snake, and it was going anywhere from like 3 miles an hour to 11. So it was basically the worst wind conditions you could possibly ask for. So some of the groups are super small, like this one. Again, we tested at 640 like we've been doing. This group is under 3 inches. And again, I shot them round robin like I always do. But this one is probably 7 inches wide. So I couldn't worry about the wind. I was just trying to get centered up and bracket it on the steel like I've been doing, and then just send them down there and try to keep a fairly quick cadence going back and forth. So the way I shot all these was I shot round robin like I did, 10 rounds back and forth, and then I'd cool the barrel with the chamber chiller for like 3 minutes, and then I'd turn the gun and turn the lab radar right to the target at 1030 to the steel target, and then I'd just shoot and try to get 5 consecutive on steel out there. Because of how switchy the wind was, sometimes the first shot would go wide left or right, because I was having a hell of a time trying to figure out what to dope for. So if it didn't hit the steel, I didn't track it. So basically the 5 shots that I put on steel, I recorded the velocity, and then I measured the vertical of those groups. And I'll put the pictures up here as I talk about it. I'll put the picture that I took of the steel with a tape measure on there so you can see the vertical of the groups. So I think we'll start by talking about the N550 loads. So remember, we had 2. We had what we thought was a daily driver, was 29.5 grains, and then what we thought was the sports car, 30.5 grains, so just 1 grain apart, and they were around 100 feet a second different from each other. So the first one, the daily driver, I thought, if you remember from the last video, I said that I thought the sports car would win the day and would outshoot the daily driver at distance, and it did on virtually every metric. So we'll go through that. So the daily driver, I put, for the vertical here, I put inches and minute of angle, corrected for 640 yards. The standard deviation of the 5 shots that made this group, and the ES of the 5 shots that made this group. So this first group was killer. It was only 1.79 inches tall, which is 0.267 MOA of vertical, which is spectacular. Past that, I mean, you can have significant growth of that group just from your aiming and your ability to aim at a fine point at that distance. Any little move you make, a moth farts on it, whatever, like you can have, that's basically as good as you can hope for. Shooting off a bipod, under the conditions that we were shooting. And I should say, before I get into too many of these details, as a reminder, this is virgin brass. Dents and all, like every single piece was dented. Some of them 2 to 3 times. I did clean up the necks with the expander ball, but I don't use an expander mandrel. I've never found it to be worth my time. So I did run an expander mandrel through, or the expander ball through all of the necks, but I didn't do any type of sorting of the brass. I didn't call any because of the significance of the dents. I didn't sort the brass for weight. I didn't sort bullets. I didn't sort anything. I just prepped them all, basically chamfered, deburred, so I ran the expander first, chamfer, deburr, load. That's it. No grooming whatsoever. So this first one, again, 0.267 MOA vertical. That's about as good as you can hope for. Standard deviation of 5.4, extreme spread of 15. You can see by the width of the group, you can see I was getting pushed around a little bit, but shot super flat, which is what we were looking for. The second group was similar. It was a lot wider, so the wind must have switched and I didn't catch it here. This one actually leaked off the paper, and I just took a Sharpie and marked the elevation of where it was because it just leaked off the target into the tape. So I had to write where that was. So this group was a little bit taller. This one was 1.79, so we ended up at 2.478 inches, and which is still only 0.370 MOA vertical, still really good. The average of that is just over 0.3, which is kind of the neighborhood we were hoping for. Once you get into that 0.3, you can kind of stop screwing around, unless you're, a competitor or something like that. But for the average guy, if you're shooting 0.30 MOA vertical, you can stop screwing with your ammo and just get out and shoot. The standard deviation extreme spread were high on this one. We had one weird anomaly shot that was way higher than the rest of them, and I kind of screwed up the numbers. And I can't tell you if it was that one or this one that was low. I couldn't tell you. Because again, I can't see these impacts. I'm shooting blind, per usual. SD 11.8, ES a 33. Then I cooled the barrel for 3 minutes, turned it to the 1030 target, and shot that. And I'll put that image up here so you can see it. I'll probably cover myself up, but 7 inches of vertical on that one, which is 0.649 MOA, which is still really respectable for 5 shots. Again, when I'm shooting that far and I'm just shooting at a white rectangle, I don't really have an aim point. I'm just trying to use the crosshairs to separate the steel plate into quadrants and try to even up those quadrants and then send it down the road. So again, no super fine aim point. All things considered, 7-inch vertical for 5-shot group is pretty dang good, especially for what we're using, 22 Nosler. The velocity numbers were way better on this one, so standard deviation of 4.4, extreme spread of 12. I would say this definitely classifies as a daily driver. If you remember, the daily driver of N540 that we were playing with, that's the first one that we shot at 640 and 1030. I look back at that footage, and that one, same thing. The first 5 shots, the vertical was probably about that 7 inches, so kind of the same thing, daily driver-esque, where it shoots pretty good. It's not gonna hang with the sports cars pretty much ever, in my opinion, but still very respectable at that lower pressure level. Nothing wrong with it. Great for brass life. You can definitely go out and practice with it. So that one, the daily driver N540, it was about 7 inches of vertical. I know the velocity metrics weren't this good. It was not an SD of 4.4 and an ES of 12. I didn't look that up. I probably should have. Maybe I'll put it on the screen here what it was. But I think this shot about the same vertical but had better velocity metrics. And I think it shot about the same. I think that one was like 0.3 MOA of vertical, 0.296, something like that. So kind of in that same neighborhood. Again, because of this one shot that went a little bit high, it probably took it away from being 0.3 MOA vertical, bumped it a little bit above that, but still, now we're kind of getting into, like I said, we're getting into kind of rounding errors where it's like you're splitting hairs at this point, and it depends on which 5 shots you track, and on any given day, one of these could outshoot the other. This daily driver versus then 540 daily driver, it'd probably be a coin flip, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So really good, definitely viable. A lot of guys would be happy with this for the life of the barrel. The other N550 charge, the sports car, which I thought would shoot better than the daily driver, it certainly did. So this shot incredible. I think it had the best metrics for the day everywhere but 1,030. I think the N540 sports car shot a little bit flatter. We'll go into that last. It's actually under these two targets, so I have to pull these two and then you'll see it. And then we can compare the two. But like I said, I was shooting round robin, so it was like 1, 1, 1, 1. Well, again, look, we have whatever 6-7 inches of horizontal, and this one's under 3. It's like 2 3/4, and then it's only 1.328 tall. So that's incredible. I don't care who you ask. That's really good. So 1.328 of vertical, which works out to 0.198 MOA, so sub 0.2 MOA, which is ridiculous. SD was only 5, ES was 15. So very similar velocity numbers to this one, and a little bit shorter on the vertical. Whatever that works out to be, 25% shorter on the vertical. The second one shot almost as good. So 1.47 inches of vertical, 0.220 minute of angle of vertical, SD 6.4, ES 18. So again, I said earlier, I think it was in part 7, how the sports cars, they can perform incredibly well by every metric. Vertical, group size, velocity numbers, blah, blah. You're at a little bit higher pressure. So, you're going to have a little bit less brass life, but not all that measurable in this case, because these aren't very warm. I think these are only in like the 56,000 PSI range, and these are like 52. So they're very tame, according to Gordon's, for whatever that's worth. But this velocity held together better, so 5 and 6.4, 15 and 18. That certainly did better than this one. And then at 1,030, these numbers are preposterous. So I'll put that image up here of that target. At 1,030 yards, we had 5.25 inches of vertical. And I think this one shot, I'm trying to remember from memory, I think this one shot a nice little group. It was kind of in a Y shape. 0.487 MOA of vertical, which is outstanding. When you're shooting sub half MOA of vertical at over 1,000 yards, it really doesn't matter what cartridge, that's really good. SD of only 2.7, ES of 8. Sports car. So this load is absolutely killer. If I had to pick one of the 4, I would pick this one personally. That's just where I'm at. But so again, stellar load. Both of these are great. Sports car outperformed the daily driver, which I figured it would, but still, they're both very, very respectable. So now I'm going to pull these real quick, and then we'll look at the N540 sports car compared to this sports car. All right, so got those other targets pulled. You're probably noticing here that when we were shooting the steel, we had a lot of rain recently, so the T-posts were kind of sagging with that big 24-inch and 12-inch plate hanging on them. They're 7-foot T-posts and had over 100 pounds hanging on them, so they slowly started sagging forwards. And as we got late in the day, we started fragging the hell out of this paper, so there's a lot of lead frag on here from hitting the steel. But I'll point out the holes. So by the time I got this late in the day, the wind was really bad. So you can see this group over here. And again, as a reminder, this was the N540 sports car, which we never shot at 640 and 1,030, which is why I wanted to do it today. But it's the load that shot that little teeny 0.534 inch group at 200 yards in the 31-inch barrel right before we cropped it to 28. I think it was part 8, I started the video with that where we said goodbye to the 31-inch. It shot that little itty-bitty group at 200. That's this load. So I wanted to see what it could do at distance. Again, I didn't want to put it in the bullpen without knowing what it was capable of. So this one, there's a hole way over here that I'm pointing to. It's probably off the frame for you, but it's off the side. I don't know if I can pan and see that without screwing up the video. So that's way over here. And then the balance of the shots were right here in a row. So these 4 shots, almost no vertical. The one that went off the target added quite a bit of vertical to this group, but still, it was only 1.881 inches tall, which is 0.281 MOA. These 4 shots that stayed on the target were sub-inch of vertical, whatever that is, 0.13 or 12 MOA. Just ridiculous. And then standard deviation of 3, ES of 9. Killer. The second group was not nearly as good, but still really good. And again, not sorting brass, not sorting bullets. So I don't know if this was, we had a bad bullet or neck tension was weird on one of the cases, because the vertical doesn't really match the velocity numbers, if you ask me. Or it doesn't match this group either. So this one, we had 1 shot here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 way over here on this other target. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. That group's probably 10 inches wide. Again, it was just an ass kicker. But the vertical on that is 2.593 inches, which is 0.387 MOA, still really good in that 0.3 to 0.4 neighborhood. Standard deviation was only 2.1, and the extreme spread was only 6, which is really, really good. And then again, cooled it, turned the gun, turned the lab radar, shot at 1,030, and this one shot the flattest group of the day at 1,030. And again, by this time the wind was kicking my butt, so I think to get 5 shots on the steel, I think I shot 9 times or something like that. So they weren't in order, asterisk. The 5 shots that we tracked weren't in order, and the 5 shots that hit the steel weren't in order. But the ones that did hit the steel were only, I'll put the picture up, 3.563 inches tall, which is absolutely crazy. 0.330 MOA of vertical. Standard deviation 4.3, extreme spread 12. So, again, sports car really outperformed the daily driver. The vertical for 5 shots was about half. The sports car was half as tall as the daily driver. Velocity metrics were better also. I'll look those up to what those were at 1,030. I have that data, and I'll put that up here so we know what the standard deviation extreme spread was of the first 5 shots. But I think it was, I think this was better, just going from memory. It was similar, but I think this was better. So yeah, so that's where we're at. So I've reached a point where I'm not going to waste any more time tinkering with this test platform and these hand loads, because we've reached a point of diminishing returns. I could try all of these loads with different neck tensions and start sorting bullets and sorting brass and screwing around, but really I would be honest, I don't give a shit. Like I really don't care if we can get a little bit better than this. We're just wasting time and components at this point. I've had conversations with some of the folks that are following the series, and I told one fella that I'm not trying to shoot the smallest groups. I'm trying to basically behave in a way that the average shooter is going to behave, which is why I shoot around, I come off the gun, I put the brass away, I have to rebuild my position, blah, blah, and I'm not in a hurry. Like, that's how the average person's going to shoot, and I'm trying to come up with something that, despite me doing everything in my power to not shoot good groups and not have it perform well, it's still going to perform well. So that's what I was trying to do this whole time through the whole series, just despite me making every effort to screw things up and sabotage it, get loads that were good enough that they're still going to shoot. So I'm at the point where there's no point in wasting any more time. We're just going to start building rifles and get these things in the hands of people that want them. So that's where we're at for this. We're still going to, I think I was talking to Dale today, I think we're still going to crop the barrel to 25 and keep testing there. It might be a little bit before we do that, just because he's been in Alaska and he's got a bunch of stuff that he's got to do to get caught up. So might be a little bit before we crop it. We do still have to shoot the next dwell time test at this barrel length with this sports car load and the factory ammo. this N540 sports car load and the factory ammo, and then we'll crop it and continue and go on. But again, we're at the point where we're ready to start building product rifles. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to know about this. If there is, hit me up in the comments. I'll respond to you, and if there's anything significant about it you want to know, then maybe I'll do a separate video on it. But that's what we have for now. By all measures, this thing freaking hammers. So we're done playing around, and we're going to start getting these out in the wild and get them in your hands and see how you like them. So that's all I got for now. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.